Hi, everybody, and welcome to Leaning Forward. This is Karl.
And Laura.
Forehand. So we're happy that you're here. We have a great list of speakers. Laura and I will be speaking 3 times this day, but in short segments, about our book that's releasing tomorrow called Out into the Desert, Thriving Outside of Organized Religion. So just quickly, we're going to jump into it. You've already heard from Joshua Lawson today. You're going to hear from Tracy King, December Rose, Derek Day, Aaron Tomlinson, and then us a couple more times with just short segments. There'll be a couple of breaks. Lunch is at 11:45, and then the panel is this afternoon at 2. So it's real tightly packed. Just strap in, hang on, and we'll get going. So we want to talk about the first part of our book. It's observations about the church in the 21st century. And a lot of what was added to that was our stories. As we went, we just started sharing stories about good and bad that happened. So it's kind of a journey through that, right?
Right, yeah.
So the first thing we want to talk about is we really wrestled with or considered the fact that we might have been addicted to church. That people say, I love church, and it's true because it's designed to make you love it. It's designed to make you like it. And it invokes feelings just like a concert would or a good show. It pulls out those emotions and causes you to feel something. And then a lot of people complain. A lot of people would tell me, I got my fix on Sunday morning, and then they would say it faded away on Monday when they went back to work.
Right, yeah.
So there is a codependency there. That we're addicted to church. We like church. It does something for us to go there, both for the pastor who's speaking. He gets something out of that. He gets that admiration, but we can kind of get addicted to it, right?
Well, I think that, it'd be interesting to, see what the brain research is on that, because, of course, anytime that those feel-good receptors in our brains are tapped into, either because people are complimenting you and telling you, you did such a great job, or the music is designed to, actually keys and notes and all that kind of stuff are actually designed to tap into those pleasure receptors in our brains. So, when those things are firing off, of course we're going to want to get more of that. It's like, when you say addicted to church, it's kind of like any kind of drug, if you will, that you want to go back and get that high again. So yeah, absolutely. I think that it is designed that way, so we keep wanting more and more. Even like the small groups that are there, they're kind of designed to be a type of small community where we feel like we belong. All that just taps into those receptors in our brain that control our feel-good emotions, and so why wouldn't we want to go back for more of that?
Right.
Yeah.
So anything that alters our mood can become addictive.
Sure.
So the question is not, people say, well, I like going to concerts. That's right. And I like candy occasionally. That changes my mood, does something to me. And the question is not, should we rid the world of candy? It's just, is that the main thing in our life? Is that the main thing in our spiritual life, to alter our mood just so it makes us want to come back? Right. So in the book, we wrestled with that some. We talked about addiction and how we get addicted to church, and maybe what we can do. If we're addicted to something, it might be good to put it away for a while and step back. And that was a lot of the focus of the book, was take a step back and get a clear picture of what's going on. Don't just keep feeding the addiction, right? The show, we call it the show, is rehearsed. It's designed to elicit a response.
Right.
and it's just like any other show. Not anything inherently wrong with it, but if that's what we have to have, maybe that's not the right thing. It's not the lasting thing. It's the candy. It's not necessarily the meal.
It's also designed for our comfort too, if you think about it, because I know I'm a creature of habit, and I have a certain routine that I go through each morning as I'm getting ready to go teach school, and then my classroom is run in such a way, and we've learned that, children, especially the age group that I teach, they thrive when there is a routine that's set. So if you think about our church services, they're very routine oriented. We do, we do 2 songs when we get there.
People don't like when you change it either.
Yeah, they don't like it when you change it because it brings us comfort. There's something that is very comfortable when we go into the sanctuary and everything's done the same. Again, I think that taps into those areas of our brain, that give us certainty and comfort. And those are feel good emotions, feel good responses that we get from that.
It's interesting to me to watch, a Hillsong documentary, and that's kind of where a lot of this modern day worship originates. But then to see a church that we used to go to, and they even had their Darlene Check
look-alike
there, as we kind of step back and look at it, it's all in the programming. The second thing we looked at is do we really need religion? Do we really need it? Because we stepped out of the pastor role, right? And then I immediately thought we ought to be somewhere. And probably in my mind is thinking, how can I fit in somewhere else, and do something where I'm not the senior pastor. And so we went to a church for a couple of years, right? And one of us was more convinced than the other that we shouldn't, that this really wasn't right, right? So I was still trying to fix it somehow, and trying to find a way to fit in and find a way for me to plug in to the religious side of spirituality, and it just wasn't working. Right?
I think that's where we get things like confused. We kind of just all jumble it together. So we talk about religion, we talk about spirituality, we talk about community and belonging, and I think somehow we those things that we desire, that we're hardwired for, connection. I think we are somehow wired for some sort of spirituality. Even if it's like sitting in nature, some sort of spirituality. But I think what trips us up is we throw religion in there. And I'm just not sure that, when you think, and I don't know as much about religion. I didn't study religion, so I don't know as much about that as you do, and probably some of our listeners, and definitely a lot of our speakers. But I feel like those are 2 different things,
right?
And somehow we're going, no, it's all the same,
right?
And I don't know. I don't see them as the same. To me, religion is just, it's more of kind of a list of what we need to do to please God or whatever. And, I don't see that, or I don't experience that when I'm in a place of spirituality or a true place of belonging. I don't have those same, things as religion gives me.
Maybe those rituals.
Yeah.
And a lot of those were, kind of organized around the time of Constantine, and that was 1500 years ago. It was a long time ago. But we just keep doing them, and I hear the same thing. I hear people talking about faith, my beliefs, I want to hold on to my faith, but your faith and your religion are not necessarily connected. Religion is what man made up,
right,
to try to satisfy that spiritual longing we have, and that, like you said, that need for connection, which is real. You connect with your grandkids, We connect with the children. We connect with each other. We need some type of friendship and companionship. We're hardwired for connection. But, honestly, what we found when we stepped back and looked at it, those first 10 chapters of the book, was that the community that the church generally offers is kind of a faux community.
Right, yeah.
And we're leaving our community that we live in to go to this faux community where I really can't ask questions even.
Right.
If I want to talk to the guy that's in charge, I have to wait a couple weeks. We do have some small groups where we have some time, but even in those small groups, there's a lot of bypassing. There's a lot of trying to fix each other instead of listening to each other. There's not that much time for me to go, hey, I got a problem. I'm having trouble with, these beliefs about God, and I want to ask some questions. And you can't ask very many questions, or you just kind of get shunned or pushed off to the side, and so on.
Exactly. So I would say, I'm just not sure. I'm not convinced that we need religion. Now, do we need connection and belonging and, spirituality? Yeah, I think those, things are hardwired into us. But as far as religion, which you said is man-made, I don't see that we actually have to. Like, that's hardwired into us that we need that.
And so maybe a lot of that changed when the internet came about. There's so many things we can get in other places. We can go to a concert. We can watch a concert online. We can gather with
a podcast.
Yeah, we have coffee shops where we can gather. We have different things that we can do for free. We don't have to pay. We don't have 1,500 people don't have to drive to a building somewhere. There's other ways to connect.
Right.
So another thing we talked about is that churches, whether we like to admit it or not, generally don't heal us. And we were both kind of affected by a quote from Sarah Bessie, Canadian. I don't know why I have to say that, that she is a Canadian. She said, churches don't have room for our grief. And so we have this situation, a systemic problem, where people come to the church wounded.
Right.
The church says, we want to help you heal, and they genuinely intend to. But then most of the time, 70% of the money, most of the time is spent producing the show on Sunday or Saturday or whenever you have services. And most of the energy and time and money goes to keeping the organization running, keeping that show being produced every week. And then even if we have small groups that are beneficial, why couldn't we just have the small groups and work from there? Because churches genuinely don't meet that need of healing our trauma. And then because they don't heal the trauma, hurt people within the church. And then just to add to that, all the widespread abuse, cover-up of abuse, and so on.
Well, part of my story is that I was wounded through church. By the church. And so I remember the one church that we were going to, and we were in a small group. And it was a small group because, sometimes your Sunday school classes can be a little bit too big. But this was a Wednesday night small group, and it was a small group. There were probably no more than 10 of us there. But I don't know if you remember, but it took me forever, like several weeks, before I would even open up and say anything. Because honestly, we're in a church. These are all church people. I was wounded by the church. Why would I want to open up and tell them, how are they going to respond to that? It's not, even if they have time, I don't know that was the best place for me to, open up the church, because it wasn't that church. but it was just, the church in general, that, the way churches are run and the way churches treat women and all of those things. Yeah. So being in a small group in church is just not, in my opinion, was not the safe place for me to open up about that. So again, and I know we'll get to this, but, again, my voice was stifled because, we
talk about that a lot in the second part of the book. But so also because, people say, well, I'm sorry that's your experience, but I think it's a pretty universal experience, because when we were inside the church, we would have thought of ourselves as healing. We would have thought of ourselves as doing the right thing, but almost immediately when we stopped organized religion and had some time to cool off and kind of step back, almost immediately we began to face our woundedness. All of a sudden we had time for our grief, just like Sarah said. We had time to address it, and all of a sudden we got these deep shadow issues that we didn't even know we had because we were just stuffing them down. In the church, what I say over and over and over again in the books I've written is spiritual bypassing is one of the most common things we do. And even in those small groups, we bypass over people's problems with platitudes and, general statements. And we just get uncomfortable with that, and it's really hard in the framework of organized religion to address it.
Yeah.
Right?
I think, too, that there are some wounds, if you will. That's probably not the best word to use, but some are more acceptable than others. So, for example, at the last church that you were a pastor, that we were at, we had people there that, were on drugs, and, we welcomed them in and we worked with them, and, we talked in, our church and worked with people that had been sexually abused and things like that. So it's kind of like somehow that was, more acceptable, I guess, for lack of a better word to use. But, I feel like that, if it's trauma because of the church or because of religion or, that's not acceptable. Right. That's not acceptable to seek healing inside of a church.
Just suck it up, and God's going to take care of it. God's in control, and you're going to get through it, and we'll pray for a miracle and those kind of things.
But don't bring it up, because we don't want that. The organization will be affected if you do that.
It's true what you say. Sometimes, an addiction or something like that we have a 12-step program for. Those kind of things are easier sometimes.
It sounds funny to say that, but
because they're big deals. True. They are big deals.
Yeah, they are big deals. Absolutely.
But we kind of know, we've finally found something out about healing some of those things. But woundedness, trauma, internal trauma, and probably the things that plague pastors. Pastors don't even know how to deal with their own trauma, and they're stuffing down their own trauma, and they can't talk to anybody. Who can they talk to? And so those kind of issues, once we came out of organized religion, we were able to start addressing it, and we still are, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next thing I had written down is the topic we talked about a little bit, that the church ruined our sex life. And we mean that kind of in a general way, but also specifically, right?
Yeah, I just think, again, going along with religion and, maybe certain denominations, I just remember a long time ago, that just always somehow hearing or feeling like, well, my body is not my own, it belongs to you. And so basically, whenever you wanted my body, you were able to have it, and I didn't have a say. And that's a very real message in a lot of churches and denominations.
A lot of those distorted messages, even if I didn't think that way,
right?
Like with your voice and you speaking up, even if I didn't think that way, if all the other women in the church were pushing that or whatever,
Right.
then it was still a powerful message to you of this is what you how you should be.
Right.
And then we almost kind of passed it along to our daughters.
Yeah.
We both did. I think we talk about it in the book a lot more, but we both just kind of feel that purity culture was one of the most damaging things in organized religion.
And there's quite a few people that people that are in the deconstruction movement that I follow, like on Instagram, and they would agree with that. That purity culture has really done a number on a lot of people, like even my age. You think about that, even my age. And one of our daughters even said that, she and her husband had to, really talk about, their sex life and what they agreed to that was okay, even though the church or, voices have told them that that's not acceptable. So I mean, I think you're right. I think it's something that has done an incredible amount of damage, and it's long lasting. It's not something you can just go, okay, well, we know that caused a lot of damage, and so
it's over.
It's over, because it really, like you were talking about internal trauma and things like that. I mean, it really does a number on the psyche. And how you feel about your body, and how you feel about just the act of sex itself. There's a lot, and I feel like even we've been married 34 years. There's times that we still have to talk about that stuff, because it was just a lot of sex is just always in the confines typically of religion and specific denominations, especially, is just made to be like, before marriage, it's terrible, it's disgusting, it's gross, it's like, you don't do that, it's a sin, it's and then as soon as you get married, you're supposed to
be a slut for your husband,
right?
Basically,
Or if you are having sex outside of marriage, we keep that a secret, don't tell anybody, nobody can find out, like, so there's shame, there's all this shame,
a lot of
and then you're supposed
shame,
to go again into marriage, and that shame does not just go away,
right?
Like, it doesn't. And so that's just, and that's stuff that we still have to wrestle with, you and I, even after all these years of marriage. So
later on in the book, we talk about power, control, the role of women, things like that. And we can talk for 20, 30 minutes about each of these. But we want to talk about a few, some of those observances we found, the things we observed as we looked at organized religion. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. We'll be back on in a couple more sessions to talk about thriving outside of organized religion. That's the subtitle of the book. We'll hope you all get it tomorrow when it comes out, and then give us a review. But also, we want to encourage you just to enjoy the conference today. Have a good time, soak all this in, and then for sure come back for the panel discussion at 2. We'd love to talk to you again.